the Real Estate Players Podcast. Real talk, real players.
Welcome back, guys. We're excited to talk with Chihiro today from ZT Corporate. It's a corporate private equity firm. Welcome. Glad to have you.
All right. Thank you, Joe, Alexia, James. Appreciate your time.
How's your week so far?
Awesome, man. Keeping busy. But I am at home in Dallas all week this week. And then I'll be back to traveling next week. I'll be in Arizona.
I love when people ask me that because I'm like always chaotic. Is there any other way that our weeks go when we work in this field, right?
Yeah.
I just want you to kind of touch base off your intro because you've kind of done, I don't know, 3 interesting pivots, right? And I want to kind of, tell our viewers exactly the pivots you made and like when you knew it was the right time to do so.
Okay. Simple answer to that second question is you never know. You just got to roll the dice. And I've always said there's only one thing worth gambling on, which is yourself. So, uh, the first time was I was in a crappy job, you guys. I was a claims adjuster. I didn't like it. I had been doing that for like 9 years, or I guess 8 years when I made the decision. So that first time I gambled on myself was I said, all right, I'm gonna go to business school or figure out how to go to business school. And so I did that and then was able to get out of that job I didn't enjoy and then got into analytics, was doing that here. That's what moved me here to Texas. And I was working at a giant company doing analysis, and then that got boring too after about a year. So then that's when I got into multifamily. So that's that second pivot where I was just burning the candle at both ends. All of you are familiar with this, right? Working a day job and then grinding at night, working on something else. Did that, got into multifamily, sponsored 4 deals over those years, and then 2021, I started thinking, gosh, it's really hard to buy stuff right now. And I did manage to close one other deal, a small 79 unit, and then I said, okay, well, if I am a multifamily investor full time, but then I can't find any assets to buy, then I'm not a multifamily investor. I'm unemployed. So that's when I started looking at institutional investing and ended up where I'm at ZT Corporate doing business investing.
So you look
It's a
at
whole other fun ballpark.
families now, or you just
I
with
still
the
have one, still have one in operation.
cool. So you look for more institutional investments now on the multifamily side, like larger Class A, or do you still look for Class B and C?
So I'm not active at all in the multifamily space right now. The only investments that I would make would be as an LP. So in terms of deals that I'm actively chasing, they're going to be the deals that we do at our firm, which is going to be car dealerships. And then in the healthcare space, we do something called freestanding emergency rooms.
Interesting.
Tell us a little bit, how did you get into multifamily in the first place? Like how did you decide to become a sponsor and buy apartments?
Yeah. So Dallas Fort Worth is like, uh, there's a
The
lot
center
of
of the universe.
activity.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So the very first thing that I ever did was I went to a meetup that was held by a fairly well-known like Brad Sumrock student. Um, and from there, I went to a Brad Sumrock event, but didn't really like it. It just wasn't my kind of vibe, I guess. So I ended up joining a different multifamily mentorship group locally called Think Multifamily, run by Mark Kenny. That's where um, you know, I was about to say learn the ropes, but I already knew the ropes. Like I had been a voracious consumer of podcasts and I read every book out there. Like I kind
So
of
it
knew
was
the
more like the
mechanic.
networking aspect of it, or
Yes,
yeah.
exactly, Alexia. So I knew the mechanics, but that's never enough, right? You still can't do a deal from reading books and listening to podcasts. So being in that network was huge, right? I got connected with an attorney and then accountant, all that stuff that you need, mortgage broker, etc. So I leveraged that network and then got into my first deal. So That was process started in 2016, and then first deal was 2017, Joe.
Very cool. Yeah, no, we kind of know all of the groups. They're almost like little mini universities for multifamily.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we all kind of branch out into our own little ways. But I'm curious to see how, the multifamily deal. Well, first off, you getting bored in business is very relatable because that's an entrepreneur in the making because we just don't like to work for somebody else. And eventually we want to keep, why is there a ceiling? No, we got to break the ceiling. But yeah, so I mean, with me too, with this, I thank God I have multiple businesses. Otherwise, I'd be way too bored when like multifamily dulls down, right? So that's why you get into development and other things. But I think a lot of people are getting into buying businesses in that world. How did you kind of learn those ropes? Because that's a totally, I mean, yeah, you're analyzing them, you're getting the key metrics you need, you're underwriting, but like, what are the key metrics that are very different that you had to learn?
Yeah, so let's start with the similarities, which is we're syndicating capital, whether we're raising debt or equity or pref equity. So that part of it's the same. We're buying cash flowing assets, we're debt financing them. So all that's similar, and we're securitizing the transaction. All of that, right? What's different is the biggest difference, I would say, is the debt capital markets, right? So James, you know, we know it's 65 to 80% leverage. You get this great interest rate when you're talking about agency, and then any other, non-agency debt is really going to be benchmarked against agency, right? And that's the nature of multifamily. Whereas if you're financing, businesses, it's like 45 to 55% leverage, because that's what the market decides or has decided, and then the rate that you're going to pay is going to be 200 maybe 300 basis points higher than what you would get in multifamily, because that's also market determined. And so that makes all the difference in the world, because the debt is what drives investment and enables investment. And so the bar is lower in multifamily, which is beautiful because it allowed people like us to get in, but it's also this double-edged sword, and we're seeing that side of it today here in 2025. Whereas, at least on the debt side, there's less volatility when you're debt financing convenience stores or gas stations. And so I think that there's less kind of macro exposure, macro risk to that stuff that you don't and can't control, which is the rates, uh, because of the nature of the debt when it comes to business financing. So uh that's my like soapbox. That's like the biggest difference.
Well, that too, and that's probably why you're so interested on different ways of investing. And I mean, the reason why you started your podcast Beyond Stocks is to, learn about all those different ways people can invest and diversify. And that's probably why you kind of ventured out. You still love multifamily, right? It's just now
Oh
you're like,
yeah.
well, there's so many different ways.
Right.
Oh, I do have a fun question. So you jumped off did you say 216-meter bungee platform in South
Yeah.
Africa?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
did.
so that's like a risk thing, right? Like that's enough. Like my husband has called our life insurance people being like, she's doing all this crazy shit. Do I still get paid? Like I have a feeling that that's probably your family members. So you probably like risk. Now, how does your attitude toward risk taking impact like your investment style or your decision making in business? Like, is there a correlation?
So that's a really damn good question. I actually feel like I'm not very risk tolerant when it comes to investments. Frankly, I know plenty of people who started at the same time I did and did hundreds or maybe thousands more doors than I did. I ended up as a sponsor doing just under 600 doors. Um, and so a lot of that was underwriting a lot more deals per offer or per acquisition compared to like my peers
Well, you
who,
sounds like you did more due diligence than some people
you
did,
know,
and then you played it a little bit more safe in that sense, which you probably should have.
maybe so. I mean, I have had a very, very challenging deal that you know has had a good result. So yeah, I have been a careful person with due diligence, but what bit me the most with investment, with that particular investment, was not knowing what I didn't know. I did due diligence the way that I did on my previous deals, which ended up being successful. And so it's what I didn't know that ended up getting me. Um, but that's the nature of risk and the nature of investment.
So curious, you said you're willing to invest as an LP.
Oh yeah.
What do you look for if investing in as an LP in real estate?
Cash flow first and foremost. So
Okay.
everything that I'm in that's not multifamily is cash flowing right now at varying rates from uh like like 7% all the way up to 15% in monthly recurring, cash on cash returns.
And what are some of those assets?
Yeah, I'm in a self-storage and mobile home park fund. That one's doing about 6, 7%. Not great, but hey, at least it's yielding. I'm in an oil and gas deal that's also yielding like somewhere like in the high single digits.
People are
Uh,
investing like minerals now too, which I find very interesting.
mm-hmm.
That's a whole different
Yeah.
area.
I'm in opcos, right? Because I'm a corporate PE guy, so I'm in opcos. One of those is yielding 15% per year, distributing monthly. That's automotive, and then a healthcare deal. We're going to get our first distribution on that. That one's going to be 12% per year. It'll be a quarterly distribution. So, I'm in, two multifamily deals that aren't distributing, and one is it might be wiped out. I don't know. I hope it's not. I'm
Well,
an
how's your
LP in that
trust with
deal.
it though? Like if you're going to invest in more multifamily, are you going to be like, well,
So
that's a tough one.
so I'm not gonna say I'm never gonna invest in multifamily, whether as an LP or a GP. I don't know that the times right now. And I'm not saying that to discourage people. I just don't know whether the time is now. I know that absolutely the fundamentals of multifamily are phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
Housing shortage, like
I think it has to be the
supply
right
shortage.
deal, has to pencil right, it has to be the right
Yeah.
game plan. You know what I mean?
I was well actually here's a deal that at least on the surface sounds really good. I was talking to a friend of mine. She is about to close a deal somewhere in infill Dallas. I think she said it's near um Lower Greenville area. Small deal, fully owner financed, 3% fixed. So I'm like, yeah, that's probably a good
Yeah.
deal. Without knowing anything
Yeah.
about it, it's if you can get that kind of financing,
Yeah.
like that's
It's the only
amazing.
reason why I closed my last one with seller finance. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes if it makes sense, it makes sense. If you find those right opportunities and
Yeah.
but I mean, even I'm dabbling in development right now more so than multifamily just because it's the way the wind's blowing.
Yeah.
Um, I think when we talked, you mentioned a massive wealth transfer will occur in like real estate, business assets over the next decade or so, right?
Yes.
Where do you see those bigger opportunities emerging and how should investors prepare to capitalize for those?
Yeah, so you made a mention earlier about businesses, right? And business investing. Um, so there's varying estimates out there, but one guy, a family office guy, quasi-influencer named Ron Diamond, he said over 80 trillion in assets are going to be transferred. The transfer has already begun from the baby boomers to like our generation, right? Now, a significant portion of that, tens of trillions, is tied up in business assets. And then another significant portion is going to be real estate. So there's going to be, I think, a lot of M&A activity and just transaction activity in general. And there's going to be pent-up demand. So I think the people who are poised to take advantage of that, and I don't think it matters, Alexa, whether it's like a certain size of business, but if you can build a team that can execute on, you know, I just saw a deal come in this morning. Guys buying a sheet metal fabrication plant somewhere in the Northeast where it's been 45 years family owned. And the margins, I calculated based on the historical financials. The worst year was like 28%, best year was 35% gross margins. I'm like, that's a great business, but the risk there is he's buying it. He doesn't know how to fabricate sheet metal. So how is he going to make that transition from being a regular medical devices engineer to doing this? He's a smart guy, but if something takes him down, it's going to be the stuff that he doesn't know, right? Like kind of how I was
Well,
talking about earlier.
I think I mentioned when I was on your podcast, it's like you have to know what you don't know. Like that's the key to anybody. And you have to yeah, I was at like a talk the other day. It was the guy who has ran GM Financial CEO, and he gave like a really nice talk. He's like, you have to have a balance between humility and confidence,
Yeah.
right? And I think that is key even when with our businesses is you do have to have some humility so you actually know, have that insight, but you have to be confident in being able to execute and figuring it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is why we say, whether it's real estate or elsewhere, like team is everything, right? And so with that deal that I mentioned, I would love to see, oh, here's a guy who has owned a sheet metal fabrication plant or was a general manager of one for the last 10 years and he's on our team. Like that,
Yes.
seeing that gives me confidence to invest in a deal like that.
100%.
Yeah.
What are some exits? Do you care about the exit strategy or just interested more in the cash flow?
For us as a firm, there's three, maybe four uh principal ways that we generate cash flow. Now, first thing I'll say off the bat is we do like 10-year amortizing loans. So we're paying off principal at a pretty rapid rate on that loan. You know, interest only financing like we see in commercial real estate isn't as prevalent. So that's one thing, right? That really facilitates a refi down the road and getting proceeds out of that. So that, of course, although we're fancy in corporate PE, so instead of calling it a refinance, we call it a dividend recapitalization. But trust me, it's a refi, all right? Um, and or asset sales, right? Complete asset sale or partial sale. And then a year and a half ago, we did a management buyout. So that's another way in which we can generate liquidity to take out investors, whether um, so in our current instance, like we have preferred equity investors in one of our asset classes, so we'll take them out by generating liquidity through one, two, or all three of those avenues.
Curious to hear what how you guys underwrite the car washes. How do those balance sheets look, or when you're sizing those up?
So we don't do car washes, we do car dealerships,
Oh,
although
car dealership. Sorry, I
Mhm.
thought you said car washes. My bad.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. But I just learned that Zips Car Wash, which is a huge brand, is going through bankruptcy restructuring right now.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know about you guys, but I've been seeing a lot of car wash deals come into my inbox, and I'm like, dude,
A
Yeah,
this
lot.
shit's
Shane.
overbuilt, man.
That's why I ask. I think I just seen so many car wash requests lately that I just thought that you had said car wash, but
Yeah. Yeah, you saw car and you thought car wash, which I
yeah.
understand why you thought that, James. But I mean, where I live in McKinney, right, there's still some open land around here. And
No, there's not. I'm just
no, there
kidding.
is in McKinney, there is.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
And I subscribe to one of these tunnel car washes, right? I love it. It's great. But then like 6 months after that opened up, another one opened up like literally a 2 mile drive away, a 2 minute drive away. Less than it's probably about a mile away. I'm like, this is crazy. There's just too damn many of these things. Anyway, that's my two
Kind of like
cents
what
on car
happened
washes.
in my project up in near Sherman is had this whole plan to do this like really cool glamping RV park, but another one just opened up. And well, we had inside knowledge like through networking. I learned what other projects are going in. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, okay, it's that insider knowledge, or if you know someone in the city, or like you actually have to keep talking to people what you're doing because you can find out more things that are happening and then pivot what you're going to do. And we
Yeah.
we have a few things we can pivot to. That was just one of the ideas because we're the owner seller financing the land to us, so we can kind of come up with different ideas. But
Yeah.
yeah, that kind of solidified that I wasn't going to go that direction, even though like that was the original plan. And I'm like, there's going to be way too many in that area. You got to do your due
Yeah.
diligence of like what's happening in that
Yes.
area.
So on the freestanding emergency room space, that is the biggest risk factor, which is to say,
Mm,
if we own one of these, we can't prevent another one from coming in and taking market share from us. The way we try to mitigate that, and we've been successful in it so far, is we primarily own in secondary and tertiary markets, or if we're
smart.
in like an Austin metro type area. We don't want to be in Austin. We want to be around it, like suburbs and exurbs. And so hopefully what that would mean then is if a competitor is evaluating that market, they see we're there and say, I'm making this up, but suppose we have 60% market share, then they think, you know what, they're already dominant. We don't want to go in there. We'll go somewhere else. That is, you know, again, we can't prevent a competitor from coming in, but that has been successful for us in focusing on these smaller markets. Whereas where I live in the Frisco, McKinney area, I live near two big hospitals and then two freestanding emergency
You
rooms,
can't
all
try
four
to
of these within
segment
5 minutes.
You can't try to segment the market in
Yeah.
those circumstances. You can segment the market if there's different opportunities in other areas like you're doing. But
Yeah.
I think also too, it comes down to, okay, what's the actual business? Is it a franchise? Are they doing really well with their culture? Are they cultivating that need where
Mhm.
people actually are going to seek out that company? I think then you get down to that nitty gritty. But I think the start of what you're doing is actually really smart.
The thing is, there's no perfect investment, right? So I
No.
love that you just mentioned franchises. So franchise agreements typically protect that franchise from some sort of geographic, give them a turf, right?
Hmm.
You're not going to see two McDonald's right next to each other. Uh, but there's no perfect business because, like with franchises, I know of one where the operators, the franchisee, gets screwed because there's such a big markup on the stuff that they have to exclusively buy from the corporate
Yeah.
mothership in order to serve the product they're serving, and so they get squeezed. You know?
I mean, I've seen it. I think it really comes down to too is it the right model for what your morals are, your integrity, your plans? Because some of them do really well by their franchisees. Some of them are very greedy, or the shift is into greed, and that's where you just have to be careful. But I
Yeah.
think there's pros and cons to every single industry. You just gotta have to figure it
Yep.
out and diversify.
Yep.
Ideally, not put all your eggs in one basket, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So we
All
have
right.
time for one more question, but I guess was there any groups or for the audience, you know, anything you wanted to share or close with?
I would say, you know, you can't make money without taking risks. And sometimes somebody I'm talking to will see like we have a preferred return or we have a promissory note, right? So it's interest payments that we're making. And then they ask me, is that guaranteed? And I say, pump your brakes, nothing's guaranteed. And I always say this, like it's the same damn thing, which is the US dollar isn't guaranteed. Every day it's depreciating. That's why eggs are $6 now when they were $3 just like 2 years ago, you know? And so that's the biggest thing is if you want to make money, you must risk it. And people need to really internalize that. But if you can get used to that and wrap your head around it and embrace it, then you can make some money doing private offerings, investing in private offerings.
Very
And
smart.
is there a way that anyone can get a hold of you if they have any questions for you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, CG Kurokawa. That's CGKUROKAWA. And I can easily be found on all the socials.
Yeah, you're like me.
All of them.
Just Google
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, my name is Chihiro Kurokawa. The hardest part of finding me is spelling my name right.
Yeah. So my best friend's Filipino. She says I'm allowed to ask this, but what kind of Asian are you? Because apparently that's not cancelable. I like to know.
I am of Japanese descent.
I knew it. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I love that.
The name is a dead giveaway.
It is, but I had to
We
double
have
check.
very phonetic names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, the Filipino culture is really fun for me because they all have like Spanish last names because they were conquered by the Spaniards. So I'm just like, oh, this is so much fun. But sometimes
Yeah.
you get the mix, and I just like find the culture of Asian culture so interesting.
Yeah.
Because again, I think maybe because it's similar to the Greeks, a lot of them are loud and culturally crazy. So like, I'm just like, oh, we're related somehow.
Like you.
Yes, I mean, I'm Greek American because my family's from Greece, but sometimes you still get that leftover culture. Like, how many generations have you been in America?
I'm the first. I'm the only
Yeah.
one in my family to be born in the US.
Yep, same. So it's like, so you still grow up with that weird culture. So sometimes we're stuck between Americanized and
Yes,
that
I
culture.
relate to that,
Yeah,
definitely, as a child of
you bring
immigrants.
like the weird butter container to school with like some weird Greek soup, and you're like, oh, you don't want this? Like it's lemony. There's egg in it. Yes, I don't. know what it is, really. Sorry. Okay, don't cancel me. Love you all.
All right. Thanks a
Thanks,
lot.
everyone.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Bye.